This background is a hot mess, but I didn't want to bother with my usual one. So I found 3 of these different writer-related tag questionnaire things floating around YouTube, and I thought all of them were fun and had really interesting questions, so I'm just going to do all of them, because I think it's a really good way to get to know me. The first 2 are going to be the AuthorTube Newbie tag and the 2.0 version that were created by Jenna Streety, and the third is going to be the Writers Are Weird tag, which was created by Elliot Brooks. Let's get into it! And I'm going to try and go as fast as I can, because altogether this is, what, like 26 questions? No, wait, 36 questions! Oh, God. I'm an English student, as you can tell. Do y'all like the strawberry shortcake notebook that I'm using?
How did you find out about AuthorTube?
I was aware of people like Jenna Marecki and Alexa Dunn who were doing writer-related videos, but it wasn't until I was going through Bookish Teresa's channel and I heard her talking about her own writing, because what she mostly does is booktube, but she was talking about her own writing, and I found videos that were specifically marked as AuthorTube, and it was just a snowball from there, and I found out this community was way bigger and more vast than I anticipated, and I was like, I need to get on that.
What genres do you write in?
Oh God, I mean, what don't I write in? And that's as much of a curse as it is a blessing, because especially when you're a newbie writer, you know, you read all of these things that say, don't act like you can write everything. Find your niche and prove that you are marketable at a very specific thing, and then you'll branch out later. If I had to pick one thing that I keep coming back to, though, I would say some kind of low fantasy, meaning that most of it is our world and very familiar, but there's just kind of this like sprinkle of otherworldliness that's kind of folded in. Normal life, but a little bit spicier.
What is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story?
Preferred writing tense is definitely past, although because I am a screenwriter, I have had to make my peace with present. Favorite point of view is definitely third person limited, although I have been working on a piece lately that is kind of naturally lending itself to third person omniscient, and it's very interesting to experiment with that because God, I can't even remember the last time I wrote omniscient.
Are you a plotter, pantser, or plantser?
Plantser is probably the most accurate way to describe my writing system. I can't, like, actually start the meat of a story until I've figured out, like, at least the bare bones of the characters, the setting, and like the very absolute general plot, and then I'll write a little, find out some new things, implement those into my plan, write a little more, plan a little more, and the cycle continues. And I very much agree with the other people I've seen who do this tag and have answered plantser, because you need at least some kind of structure, but the real joy of writing is when you're right in the thick of it and you are just finding out things that your brain knows but you don't know, if that makes sense.
Are you self-published, published, or yet to be published?
Technically speaking, I am published. Let me get things. I've had a short story and a poem published, both in my college's literary magazine, but nothing so far as like a full-length piece.
What publishing company, literary agent, and or printing company are you represented by or use? If you're not yet published, what is your dream publishing house and or literary agent?
Honestly, I haven't done much research on it, mostly because screenwriting is my preferred storytelling vehicle, and most of my stories don't apply to that sort of distribution. That's not to say that I will never publish books at all. I certainly hope to. There are definitely stories of mine that I think work best in book form, but also I, don't want to get my hopes up for like, oh, I'm gonna be published by this and such, and if I can't, then I'm just gonna sit in my bed and cry. Because there are other avenues, there are always other avenues to explore, and I don't want to get my hopes crushed if that doesn't happen. Oh, I'm sorry, you can see my bra strap. Yes, I wear bras. I'm a D cup, obviously I wear bras.
What AuthorTube related videos can we expect to find on your channel?
Ideally, the plan is just flat out sharing my work, reading little snippets of something that I feel proud of, or maybe need to get some just general feedback on. I also have plans for some more analysis type videos where I look at different aspects of stories that I like. I'd love to do some videos to help new screenwriters because it can be a daunting process. And I don't know, I'm obviously still new to this whole thing. I'm excited to experiment.
When did you start writing? What was the first story you ever wrote?
These two kind of go hand in hand. As well as I can remember, I have always been writing in one form or another. Even if I wasn't writing words, I would be drawing out little picture stories. It's just always been a very natural thing for me to do. But what really started the chain reaction, so to speak, and made me realize, oh, this is a thing. Like, this is something that I can do with my life. Was actually when I was in kindergarten, and my teacher told my mom about this writing contest, and she thought that I would do really well at it. So we came home, my mom told me about the contest. She was like, why don't you write a story for it? And swear to God, that very night, I sat down at the kitchen table, spat out a story that my mom then had to transcribe because she had the better handwriting. And then I drew the pictures for it, didn't go through any edits, and it won first prize for my age group, and I had to go down to Baton Rouge and read it in front of an audience. The story was called The Locked Princess. And like, writing was fun for me before then, but after that, like, something changed in me.
What authors have inspired your writing the most?
I had to write this down because I made a list. Marissa Meyer, John Green, L. Frank Baum, Anne M. Martin, Sharon Creech absolutely changed my life. Jerry Taylor, Dave Gilbert, and to an extent, Max Landis, even though I'm not proud of that now. Such is life.
Do you schedule your writing sessions or simply get to writing whenever you can find the time?
The closest thing that I have to a schedule right now is honestly just trying to write a little bit every day. Like, I remember reading something about Terry Pratchett and how he set like a 400-word goal for himself every day, and how that was, you know, remarkably simple. And he wrote dozens of books. So I'm trying to apply that to myself right now. It does tend to happen more around nighttime because that's, for some reason, I'm just a night owl that way, and my creative energy just goes up when it's like past 7 o'clock.
Do you type on a computer, typewriter, write everything out by hand, or use a blend of those? And where do you write in general?
I wish I had a typewriter. That would be awesome. I think I've developed a system at this point where I will draft new things on paper by hand. Then I will type it up on my computer, transfer it to a document there, and further edits will happen on the computer.
What are you most looking forward to now that you're a part of AuthorTube?
Definitely meeting new people and making connections with fellow writers. I think that's mostly what everybody's here for, just to see what everybody's working on, because we are all so different and our work is all so different, and that's just a really weird and beautiful thing that I love. And also, to an extent, holding myself accountable. Not necessarily doing anything with writing in general, but to have little things to finish. We're all constantly working on something, but to have something that you had the idea, you wrote it down, you did the thing, and you finished it. Just to have those little morsels churning in and out, that can really do something to a person's psyche. A very positive thing. I've been watching that Joyce Carol Oates masterclass trailer a little too much. What is that? That is a ladybug that is no longer a ladybug. Okay, moving on.
What's your book's pitch? If you have multiple works, choose your favorite.
Well, it's technically not a book, but I'll pitch it anyway. High school cheerleader Vicky Fujioka is unwittingly turned into a vampire and now has to discover what this means for her new day-to-day life with the help of her friends.
If you were a book, how would you pitch yourself?
Oh God. After being the only person in her class to graduate with a creative writing degree, 24-year-old Emily Richardson continues her search for a plan to get where she wants to be, i.e. on a panel in Hall H at Comic-Con.
What do you usually write?
Kind of already answered this, but I'll throw in a couple more points. I love writing friendships and interesting family dynamics. I often write stories that have a concept and answer some kind of question. That's how I get most of my ideas, actually, is I am constantly asking questions and then trying to see if the answer to that question could be an interesting story.
What's something you'll never write?
Erotica. No, honestly, my knee-jerk answer was to say horror, but then in my mind I was like, oh wait, there's that one horror story idea that I saved in my notebook if I ever get the guts to write it. But yeah, no.
What's your goal for starting an AuthorTube channel?
I think I sort of mentioned this in the last one, but definitely connecting to other people, holding myself accountable to finish things. The dog is barking at God knows what.
What made you want to start writing?
As I said, kind of always been doing it.
What's your publishing path? Self-published, traditional, etc.
If we're talking about books, I guess my ideal path is traditional. I want to see my book in hardcover, on shelves, in a store, or at a library. That's kind of like the platonic ideal of a writer to me. But I also understand that I have some ideas that if I actually turn them into full-length stories would simply fare better on a self-publishing market. I think there are definitely benefits to both. I'm not really holding a candle for one or the other in particular.
What content do you bring to the AuthorTube table?
As I said, still kind of new at this, still kind of finding that out. Less content-wise and more just in energy. I hope to encourage people that it's okay to laugh at themselves once in a while. I think taking yourself seriously but not too seriously is a very beneficial trait to have.
What's your biggest writing struggle?
This is interesting because this can be interpreted in a couple ways. You know what I'm going to say? My biggest writing struggle is the fact that I can't work on a single project until it is done to save my life. I always have to have a little something, not even on the back burner, but just on the side burner that I'm, working on simultaneously with this one, and it may not have anything to do with anything. I just need like a little something fresh to focus on. But again, that translates to, the never getting anything done thing. I know some writers do that and they find great success with it, and that's like the only way that they can write. But I feel like for me, it's only a detriment.
What's your best writing skill?
I've been told by multiple sources that my best writing skill is my dialogue, and I would not disagree. Dialogue is definitely my favorite thing to write. I think it's because I've realized the balance of, hey, you have to make this sound like a real human is saying it, and when extraordinary, story-worthy things are happening, people don't necessarily talk as they would in everyday situations.
If you're new to AuthorTube, what is your biggest AuthorTube question?
That's a good one. Biggest AuthorTube question. I'm gonna get back to you on that, actually.
Are you looking for any new channels to follow, betas, CPs, or other types of writer buddies? If so, tell us.
Always looking for new channels to follow, obviously. I know this community is way bigger than it seems. As far as betas go, I'm always looking for just a pair of fresh eyes to look at my work. At this point, not necessarily looking for anything long term. I actually have no idea what a CP is. I don't know if that should worry me or not. Yeah, for now, I'll say that's my biggest AuthorTube question. If you know what a CP is, please tell me.
What are you most excited for during this new, fresh start on AuthorTube?
I think I kind of answered this already, so we're just gonna move on to the next one. The cat is just sleeping on the floor, and he's so cute. The right is a weird tag. This was my favorite.
Do you have bizarre internet searches? What's the weirdest one?
I absolutely have bizarre internet searches. That's like my absolute bread and butter. Let me just see if there's anything weird that I've searched recently. Word length of a middle grade novel. I guess that's not that weird. Is there water on Pluto? A Violan mineral pronunciation? And I couldn't actually find the answer, so I don't know if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. Oh, this one probably takes the cake. Fairy tales making a deal with a witch for a child. Hopefully that one will make sense very soon.
Do you write people you know and dislike into your story as villains or dumb people to kill off?
Not necessarily like their personalities or physical appearance or anything, but I am not above naming certain characters after people I don't like who maybe end up not the nicest people. So in a way, yes.
Does personal hygiene sometimes come second to writing?
Not really. I have a pretty regular hygienic routine that I just need to feel human. I just like feeling clean. I like feeling like I'm together, you know? It helps my brain function.
Do you go on baby name websites to help you name your characters?
All the time. It's not necessarily a baby name website per se, but God knows I use behind the name and surnames.behind the name almost every day. I don't use it for absolutely every character, but if I want a character to have, let's say, a name from a certain cultural background, or for the meaning of the name to follow a certain convention that I've made up, I will definitely look on a name website of some kind.
Do you have a list of actors and actresses that would play your characters if there was an adaptation made?
You would think, because I'm a screenwriter, but the truth is no. However, though, sometimes I just write a character that has a specific actor's demeanor in mind, whether or not that actor will actually portray them in the future. So take that as you will. Like, there was a story that I was messing with in college where I could just so clearly see the characters being played by specific actors. Like, okay, this guy is Stanley Tucci. This guy is Tom Hiddleston. This guy is Bruce Willis.
Have you ever stared at a stranger because they look like one of your characters?
Yes, actually. It doesn't happen terribly often, but I remember I was driving. Never do this if you're driving, by the way. Good God. So in Good Die Young, obviously, main character is a vampire, and she dresses a certain way in order to go outside in the sunlight and not burn to death. So she wears like this big ridiculous sun hat and long sleeve sweaters and tights and things like that. And I was driving, and there was this woman walking on the sidewalk, and she like had a big hat and a long sweater, and it was like in the middle of summer. So she looked really out of place, which made it even weirder. And I just remember like rubbernecking this woman, like, was that Vicky? Oh my God.
Do you talk to yourself to help work through scenes?
I mean, it's less talking to myself and more just straight up acting out scenes. But yes, all the time.
While writing, do you make the expressions your characters are making?
Not so much the expressions, but I have been known, like if the characters are making some kind of gesture, or if they're just like reaching out to something, I have been known to do that. Like I'll be writing like and just do the thing that they're doing, and then just go back to it.
Do you ever practice answering interview questions in case you make it?
How dare you call me out like this? Yes, I do it, and I'm embarrassed.
Do you have a soundtrack and/or playlist for your book or scenes from your book?
It depends. Sometimes there's just a very specific vibe or energy that I am trying to capture, and music definitely helps with that. I'm a very musically inclined person, and I tend to be thinking about soundtracks for things like that anyway. Like, I have a playlist on Spotify for Good Die Young that I'm like, okay, when these scenes happen, it needs to be this specific song playing, or else it's just not gonna work. Obviously, I need to work on letting that have some leeway because that will probably not be under my control if and when this thing gets made. But other times it'll be more just like a general sound or genre that will help me get in the mood. And again, it depends on the story, but I do think about music and writing together quite a lot. And that's it! Holy crap, I did it! I hope you learned a little bit about me. I hope that this was entertaining in some fashion. And if you think any of these tags are interesting and want to do them yourself, consider yourself tagged. Woo! The magical tag fairy tags you. Yeah, that was fun. It's sort of like archaeology in a way. I say this like I know anything about archaeology, but if you've got like a lump of dirt in front of you and it's about the size of a grapefruit or something, obviously you know that you're not going to be finding a whole T-Rex skull. But, you know, you brush, and then lo and behold, you find something that maybe you weren't expecting. Did that even make sense? I don't know.